introduction. Please hold your applause when I introduce all the board members. Starting with myself, Andrew Yim as the president. Next we have Jeff Fanley. Please stand. Dan Biles, not here. Frank Chan, secretary. Donna Mann, treasurer. David Wang, arrangements. Jim Farley, not here. Pat Cathcart, communications. Dick Pearson, communications. Janet Morgan, membership. Yeah. Kathy Matsumoto, she's still here. David Stupfield, social. Not yet, not yet. Soma Warner, social. And immediate past President Pete Leffler. Give them a big hand. Again, hold your applause when I introduce all the past presidents. Starting with, again, Pete Leffler.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Janice Lee McMahon. Elbow. Kent Halkett. Can you? No? Maud Mortimer. John Morris. Tom Sanley. Wally Roswell. Bill Berry. Bill Payne. And Mr. Dick Ward. Okay, Mr. Ward should remain standing because I'll introduce the city officials. City Council, thank you. Mayor, Mr. Dick Ward again. Our Vice Mayor Dennis Neers here. Dennis. Okay, we're missing Eugene Sun, Dr. Richard Sun, Dr. Ellen Young. But we have City Treasurer Marino Wang here. City Manager is also here, John Schaefer. Planning and Building Director, Dave Saldana. Is our police chief here, Tim Harrigan? No. Fire chief, Jim is not here too. School board, President Joseph Chen is here. Is Chris Norgard here? Any other board member? School board member, no? Superintendent Lauren Kleinrock is here. Is the high school athletic director Andrew Gill here? No? Okay, is the Chamber of Commerce president Joanna Jimenez here? No? Historical Society president John Morris again.
Monday, Historical Society program at the library. Learn about the founding fathers of San Marino you may not have heard about before.
Good. Thank you, John. Okay, moving on. The Voters Forum on September 26 was a successful event, mostly thanks to our board officers, Dan Biles and Frank Chan. And we need to also thank Mitch Lehman, Mitch should be here, for being the MC. And on behalf of the City Club, we do have a small gift for Mitch. That event was videotaped, and I know Hannah at the back is working to upload the video to the YouTube. And I'll give her some time once we get the link We'll email to all the members and maybe to other groups. And the election date is November 2nd. Okay, tonight is also the City Club annual election meeting. And let me pass that to our secretary, Fran Chen.
Thank you, Andrew. Last month I gave the report of the nominating committee. They announced that according to the bylaws, there was a process where any other candidates could be nominated by petition by submitting a petition to me along with consent of 10 other members by October 1st, but there were none. So I'm not going to read the names of the proposed nominated 2014 Board of Directors. President, Jeff Fadley. First Vice President, Daniel Biles. Second Vice President, Frank Chen. Secretary, David Wang. Treasurer, Donna Mann. The board members continuing on, James Frawley Jr., Kathy Matsumoto, Richard Pearson, Soma Warna. New directors for a term of 2 years, John Crowley, Jeff Dixon, Adam Joe, and Joanna Jimenez. And continuing on, immediate past president, Andrew Yip.
I move the nomination be closed and we cast a unanimous ballot for the slate.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Congratulations.
Okay, let me be the first to congratulate Jeff and your board. And I know City Club will be in great hands in 2014. And since I see Mitch Lehman just arrived, and I mentioned that we want to thank you for being the MC for the Voters Forum. If you can come up with a small gift. This is a City Club paperweight. Because you are the heavyweight. Thank you very much. Okay, next. We have Janet Morgan, our membership.
Everybody's guessed the number at the base.
Thank you. Good evening. First of all, I'd like to welcome our guests who are here this evening and let you know this is a great opportunity to join City Club or to think about it, and you can still join tonight for $65, and that would include tonight's dinner and our November meeting, so it's not too late for this year. And for our current members, it's not too soon to start renewing your membership. So if you want to do that this evening, we'll gladly take your checks, and we have the forms up front. You will also be mailed a renewal, but if you renew tonight, you'll save us the postage, so please feel free to do so. I have one new member to introduce this evening, and that's James Chang. He's here. And James is a pharmacist with Good Price Pharmacy. He owns 2 independent pharmacies, one in Highland Park and one in Glendale. I guess he and his wife are both pharmacists, correct? And he was born in Taiwan and came to the U.S. in 1985. He and his wife and 3 kids, Victor, Diana, and Elizabeth, have lived in San Marino since 2000. He is an elder in his church. He likes family time with his kids and loves basketball and tennis. So please welcome James.
members, we welcome you to join our committees to be in the subcommittee. So if you're interested, do let any of our directors know. Next, David Studfield about the tennis tournament.
Now, you know, everybody's been asking me, when will the annual tennis tournament be? And it's going to be November 3rd, Sunday, November 3rd. It's going to be different this year because we're going to have a clinic on volleying from 11 o'clock to noon, and then the tournament from noon to 3. It's invited, everyone's invited, members, non-members, men, women. It's a round robin format. It's a lot of fun. Lunch is included. Balls are included. It's $25 per person. Bill Prairie, joining us tonight, who renewed his membership tonight actually, is a longtime tennis enthusiast, coach, great player. He will be leading. Also, we have 2 new members of City Club who are taking the lead in organizing this tournament. Bill Bell, who's in a pink shirt right here, and also Rich Jones, who couldn't make it this evening. Rich is the advertising manager at the San Marino Tribune. So on the table you'll see registration forms, and if you don't play but you have a friend who does, give them the form. We'd love to see you on the 3rd of November. I think that's it. So.
David, please just keep holding that right. Okay, this is all the announcements, and remember I mentioned that slow down to smell the roses. So let me turn it to Jeff Valley to introduce Daryl Dunn.
Thank you, Andrew. Granddaddy of them all, the familiar refrain from college football announcer Keith Jackson. The Rose Bowl has been played 99 times. This will be the 100th game. The Rose Bowl Stadium itself was built in 1923. It is celebrating its 90th year. With a stunning location seen by millions of people, the Rose Bowl game and the Rose Bowl itself are seen as one. They are not, but millions of people, millions of minds, believe that the Rose Bowl game couldn't be played anywhere else but the jewel in the arroyo beneath the shimmering San Gabriels on a clear January afternoon. The Rose Bowl game is the Rose Bowl Stadium. This evening we have the CEO and General Manager of the Rose Bowl Operating Company. But as a historical landmark that so many people are emotionally tied to, he also serves as the keeper of the flame, making sure that the soul of the building preserves the soul of the game for the future. Mr. Dunn is responsible for managing all aspects of the facility, including contract negotiation with prospective events, ongoing relationship with existing tenants, Tournament of Roses, and UCLA, all financial, marketing, and operational needs for the stadium, and long-term strategic planning, as well as community relations and the creation of 2 nonprofit organizations, the Rose Bowl Legacy and First Tee of Pasadena, providing support to the Rose Bowl and Roadside Golf Course. Leading the Rose Bowl Operating Company, he has secured a $152 million renovation that will provide the stadium with significant long-term capital improvements, a 30-year contract with UCLA and the Tournament of Roses. He has booked and overseen such events as 3 BCS National Championship games, 12 UCLA seasons, and hosted such events as the finals of the 1999 Women's World Cup Final, U2 at the Rose Bowl, international soccer, including matches involving Barcelona, Real Madrid, Chelsea, and the national teams of Mexico, United States, and Brazil. A native of Connecticut, Mr. Dunn resides in Santa Clarita, is married, and has 2 children. Please welcome Mr. Darrell Dunn.
Oh, that was a great introduction. Thank you. I could have read it. Well, I'm really flattered to be here, especially that the Dodgers have a big game going on. And, you know, hoping it was recording it is, you know, I give the score because everybody wants to know. It's not good. Not good for the boys in blue right now. But really what I'm here to talk about today is the Rose Bowl. And, you know, I feel very, very, very lucky. Because the Rose Bowl is not a building, it's a special place. And I've been to the Rose Bowl now. I started working in 1995 in a part-time role, and I've grown over the years. And I've been with my position since 1999. And, you know, it truly is a blessing. You know, Jeff was talking about, you know, the history of the Rose Bowl a little bit, and the term of roses. And this is my favorite time of year coming up, because I love when they start with the bleachers and the grandstands on Orange Grove and get ready for the parade. It's very, very special. This picture, actually, this is from the first Rose Bowl game. And of course, it wasn't called the Rose Bowl game, it was East-West Shrine game at the time. And that was in 1902, and that was not in the Arroyo Seco, that was at Tournament Park, right by Caltech. And the story of that game, and, you know, the way that actually came to be was the parade, this year the 125th parade in the 100th game. So obviously the parade had a head start. And what happened is, you know, this area, of course, you know, the Midwestern, it's really a Midwestern community. You know, people from Chicago and that area of the country, you know, they came out here in the winter. And, you know, they started through the parade to try to, you know, help commerce, help the identity for this area. And they wanted something to do after the parade. Football was big back in the Midwest, bring it out here. The first game was Michigan-Stanford. The score was 49-0 Michigan, and they invoked the mercy rule in the third quarter. It's a true story. And then what occurred is, because they decided, let's do something different the next few years. The book of the day was Ben-Hur. Chariot races came to Pasadena. They had ostrich races, and they went on to 1916 before the game commenced again. And as I hear, when the last game, you know, time before the football started again, the ostriches got loose and they almost, you know, caused great injury to the president of the tournament. What happened was, when the game started back in 1916, it didn't take long to see that football was here to stay. And Tournament Park wasn't going to work long term. It just wasn't. It didn't have enough capacity. It wasn't set up to be a football stadium. So the Tournament of Roses at the time, the president was a gentleman named William Leishman, whose son is still around town, the grandson, I'm sorry. And he hired an architect named Myron Hunt. They went on they looked in Pasadena where the right location would be for a stadium. And they went over by where Chandler School is, and, you know, as the lure goes, they had a paper and, you know, they drew an oval in it, and then they looked and decided where the place was. And in the Arroyo Seco, the Rose Bowl area was a junkyard way back when. And the picture, that one right there, that was the vision for the Rose Bowl. It was $1 million vision. So they passed the hat. And actually, at the time, they sold ticket script, a booklet, 10 years worth of tickets. Each ticket cost like $5, which if you bought 10 years worth of $50. And they raised $272,000. And that's what they did to build the Rose Bowl. And they kept doing that per decade, I believe through the 50s. They kept doing that. But here's a few other just great pictures of, you know, what it once was. This is the construction methodology. You know, back then, you know, as you can see, the stadium was done. This was the first game. A few other great pictures. This one right here, that's the Four Horsemen of Notre Dame. You know, what makes that special, they're, you know, that Four Horsemen of Notre Dame, they're sort of they're the legends, among the legends. And in that game, Notre Dame played Stanford. And somebody told me, a Notre Dame grad, that Newt Rockne was their coach, and he really lobbied hard to get Notre Dame here the year prior. but he couldn't convince the president of the university. So he did it the following year, and it was the last game for the Four Horsemen. And they happened to play Stanford that year, and the coach for Stanford was Pop Warner. So he had some real college football legends. This picture, I'm not sure here, but Jackie Robinson, I was telling these folks over here a little bit ago, he grew up here in Pasadena, and he played at PCC. So his home field was the Rose Bowl. And over time, I really believe that those visionaries from the Tournament of Roses, if they would have looked, and they thought of the parade and the game in the stadium, as a real platform for Pasadena, to try to make the world know of our community. And I think they'd be proud and happy because it's worked. But one of the real changes that sort of put it into overdrive was when UCLA came to Pasadena. All right, we have one fans here today. This past weekend, actually, we dedicated a building at the Rose Bowl for Terry Nani, the former coach. And the evening before, there was a dedication, and Chuck Young, who was the chancellor at the time, in the early 80s, he spoke and he gave the story of why UCLA actually moved to Pasadena. And forever, UCLA played at the Coliseum. They shared the stadium with USC. But the Raiders were moving down to the Coliseum, and he felt that he was going to be third on the totem pole, and that wasn't acceptable. So he said the Coliseum Commission was not being reasonable. So he got up, he walked out, he called the press conference, said, "I'm moving to Pasadena." He didn't have a lease, he didn't have anything, but he did it anyway. And fortunately, Pasadena took him with open arms, and they've been here since. And during that time, in the 80s and the 90s, the Rose Bowl, the events it had, it was among the best in its history. Here's just a few. During that time, it had 5 Super Bowls. It was the host of the finals in soccer for the Olympics, Men's World Cup, Women's World Cup. We're the only stadium ever in the world to host all 3 of those events. We had, of course, some concerts. This one right here was U2, which was the largest concert ever in this country in a stadium for one band, and 97,000 people. It was an extraordinary event. We've had some incredible events. Here's a few more. One of our favorite events, of course, is the 4th of July. This year we celebrated our 87th annual July 4th event, and the Rolling Stones are down here. So we've had, it really was spectacular. But what happened though, around that same era, was other stadiums, other cities around the country, they got wind of it. They got wind that if you have a stadium that could really help your identity and really help your economy. So other cities and regions were putting in hundreds of millions of dollars into their stadiums. Here are a few different examples. And for anything compared to today, that's cheap. And now a new stadium costs over $1 billion. And frankly, most of them don't make money. Most of them are almost lost leaders because it helps the overall economy and helps the image of those communities. We were really built, obviously, to host one event. We were built to host January 1st. And there were a few other stadiums that were built in that same era. The Orange Bowl, Miami built the Orange Bowl Stadium, and the Cotton Bowl Stadium in Dallas, the Cotton Bowl game. What happened with the Orange Bowl was, that stadium was a host for the Miami Dolphins, the NFL, had a lot of Super Bowls there, the University of Miami football team in the Orange Bowl game. But the owner of the Dolphins at the time was a gentleman named Joe Robbie. And Joe Robbie, he went to the city of Miami and he said, this stadium is getting deteriorated and it needs an investment. And he wanted the city of Miami to help take care of and fund those improvements. And evidently there was a political showdown. And the city of Miami said, no, we won't do it. And Jarabi said, well, if you don't do it, I'm going to leave and I'm going to build my own stadium. And there was no privately financed stadium in the country at that time. So he did. He moved 40 miles up to Broward County. He took the Dolphins with him. And he took the Super Bowls with him. A few years later, he took the Orange Bowl game with him. Then eventually he took the University of Miami with him. And that's what happened in the Orange Bowl. So when we were going through all of our discussions about whether or not we should improve the Rose Bowl, certainly we've never been in that condition. But comes a time when you have an opportunity to reinvest and keep yourself vibrant for the future. We thought this was the time. And, we do remember the Orange Bowl. The Cotton Bowl Stadium was a little bit different, but candidly, I think that picture of the Orange Bowl will eventually happen with the Cotton Bowl as well. The Cotton Bowl used to host the Dallas Cowboys football team in the Cotton Bowl football game. The Cowboys moved out. First, they moved to a stadium called Texas Stadium, and recently they built a new stadium, the Dallas Cowboys Stadium, which is well over $1 billion. And the Cotton Bowl team is now played at that stadium. So this stadium, since that time, they're putting a lot of money into the facility, but they have one event a year. And it's a Texas-Oklahoma football game that they happened to have last weekend. And it's just living on borrowed time. The reason we have the NFL slide in here is what happened is I took over this position, my job in 1999, and I said we were just coming off an incredible run of activity, but we're trying to look towards the future. And what will the future be for the Rose Bowl? Because we never felt that you could sort of sit on our hands and expect everything's going to be okay by doing nothing. So we did a business plan, and the business plan basically said, if the city of Pasadena wants the Rose Bowl to continue to be a vibrant part of our community in the future, then it needs to find a way to reinvest into it. And if you don't want to take all the risk and recognize that it's going to be very difficult to make it work financially, and you want somebody else to come in and foot the bill, there's really only one other option, and that would be to bring an NFL team to Pasadena. With it, we would have to change the stadium, and it would look like those other stadiums that I showed you. And the city council at the time thought, yes, we should pursue that. However, we also realized that a lot of very successful people have spent millions of dollars chasing the NFL, and nothing has ever happened. So we made an arrangement where a third party came in and basically took all the financial risk for the pursuit of the NFL. And if that person was successful, then they were going to get a $5 million success fee. But if they weren't, they got nothing. Well, I think we know what he got. And it really was an interesting, a difficult experience because it took about 3 years. And it was very controversial and difficult. At the end of the day, Pasadena said, no, we don't want the NFL. However, at the same time, they said that this has really taught us something that you cannot sit on your hands and expect the Rose Bowl is going to be okay without doing something. So what they did then is they went to me and they said, now you've got to figure out plan B. And I said, okay. So they gave me $1 million and said, you go hire your best architects, best financial people, and figure it out. So we did. We hired the world's largest sports architecture firm, financial consultants, and we came up with a project that would cost over $300 million. And our financial people at the end of the day said, this does not have a chance to pencil out. And so of the $1 million, it took us $900,000 to figure that out. So we had $100,000 left. And now what do you do? Well, the first thing we did, actually, as part of that, is we decided what is really important for our stadium for the future. We came up with 5 basic objectives for improved public safety, enhance the fan experience, create long-term revenue streams, improve facility operations, and retain the stadium as a National Historic Landmark. So we said, whatever we're going to decide, this needs to be part of the core. And then, again, we're down to under $100,000 left, so I said it's time to go on vacation. So I went to, I'm from Connecticut. My son at the time was 10. And we went to see the Red Sox play. And they won today, which is a good thing. And so really the visit wasn't totally for pleasure, because Fenway Park was built in 1912, historic stadium. Some of the same challenges that we had, difficult exiting, not enough space, not enough revenue opportunities, the infrastructure deteriorating. You know, it suffered from the same things. And at one point, the Red Sox were for sale, as was Fenway Park, as part of it. And there were 7 ownership groups that were trying to buy it. Only one wanted to keep Fenway Park and try to restore it. The other 6 wanted to tear it down and move. Unfortunately for the Red Sox, by the way, one of those ownership groups that was trying to buy it was Frank Court. And he didn't get it, thank God. But in any event, the group that didn't get it, they hired a woman named Janet Marie Smith, and she had she was acclaimed because she designed Camden Yards in Baltimore, which really changed the way baseball stadiums were designed from sort of suburban, sort of cookie cutter stadiums to much more urban and a little bit more of a personality. She's actually with the Dodgers today. But we went to Fenway Park, met Janet, met her team, did all the work there, and explained our situation. They were intrigued. They came out to Pasadena about a month later. And we didn't have much left in terms of dollars, but we paid the team to come up with a vision for what we could do with those 5 objectives in mind. And they came up with a plan of about $150 million worth of work that could achieve our objectives. And going back to that whole NFL story, we were Rose Bowl was a pretty controversial issue in Pasadena. We were in the middle of some beautiful neighborhoods, and where Pasadena is a very historic city. And when the whole NFL thing came up, if that happened, we could have gotten delisted as a National Historic Landmark. So there was a lot of volatile discussions going on. But as I said, it really helped educate the community. So when the Fenway Park team came in, people were really happy about it. UCLA, the Truman Roses, our partners, saw it, and they looked at the amount of, they looked at the price, and they figured, okay, if we redo our deals, each one being 30 years, there's a way that they can help support it financially. We looked at our future revenue stream ourselves. The design was done in a way that we thought was sensitive to the history and the setting, and didn't really change the Rose Bowl. So we had so much support, whether it be from neighborhood groups or business groups all over the town. Part of the reason you see a few of these dollars show up, it did cost dollars. And in 2010, we were at an interesting time because the economy was really bad. And President Obama, he did a stimulus program, and he had something called Build America Bonds. And essentially, Build America Bonds was a rebate on interest. So money was very, 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 very inexpensive. But the catch was, you had to get everything done, you had to have your bond signed off by December 31st, 2010. And we found the right project for ourselves early, first quarter, 2010. Truman Roses, and go through financing, work with architects to see if we can sort of get in under the wire. So we did, and barely. But when we did, which was November of 10, we were the only ones under the wire. A lot of other cities around the country, the same as us. So when we expected our bonds were going to be selling to closer to $150 million, it actually sold for about $140. So we started in the hole financially a bit. This picture here, this was 2 months later. We broke ground. We broke ground on the Rose Bowl, on the sites. And then as we've gone through it, the stadium just shows a few of the photos of what we've done. One thing, again, we're old, we're historic, but people still, today you have that technology. People have that expectation. At the same time, we want to show this scoreboard here is similar to what occurred in the 1930s. this tunnel. If you go in the Rose Bowl, what it was, it's, you know, the way it was built. There's 28 tunnels, each one is 7 feet wide, 110 feet long, and that's what's, I think 90,000 people go in and out of. So we've doubled the width of the ones in the end zone, which are have been the most challenging. Again, this just shows a little bit of before and after, if you would. You know, in the Rose Bowl, what's happened really to the Rose Bowl over its history is, if they needed to do an improvement, they did it. There really was never a master plan. It just keep making changes and keep upgrading, but it wasn't very symmetrical. So the same thing, this is what it was, and this is what it is. And just a few other shots. This shows you the difference in the tunnels. You know, before what happened, you saw the public safety improvements been one of our objectives. It took 35 minutes for our stadium to clear out when you had 90,000 people in it. And now, when we're done, this is about half of that. The new stadium today is about 11. So we're not going to be perfect when we're done, but we're going to be better. And again, this shows when the Rose Bowl started, it was a pure oval. It was a bowl. But over time, historically, it changed. You know, they added seats, they've added some things, so, but eventually you're going to see the stadium be back to a bowl. And just a few other shots here. This one, the intermediate aisle, which eventually we're going to have in the whole upper part of the stadium. Again, given we're grandfathered in a lot of codes. It's because we're so old, and we are. But like this is an example. Right now, in our upper rows of the stadium, you can have 40 or 50 seats along the row. So if you're seat number 25, you got a lot of people to climb on over to get, and so it's just going to cut it in half. Again, you know, it's going to help both the fan experience, but also really for safety, get people out quicker. You know, and then the way we did it, the improvements is we never stopped playing football. Sometimes you'll see a construction project somewhere and a team or the facility sort of shuts down, and you do the work and you come back in. You know, we've had events during it. Typically what we've done, we play football, construction, play football, construction. We've done that 3 times. We broke into phases. Right now we're in phase 3. Originally, our goal really was to get everything done, and everything done for the 100th game, which is this year. We had about 85% of the work done. We did run out of money. This cost us more than we thought it was going to cost us. Our original estimate was about $152 million, and it's actually going to cost about $182. So it is costing more, and so if you run out of money, you gotta cut back. We've had to cut back a little bit. We're still going to continue, and we're going to end up getting more work done. I want to show you a few other slides. But one of the real key things, and probably one of the things I'm most proud of during this whole project, is the creation of a nonprofit group called Legacy Connections, and it's called the Rose Bowl Legacy Campaign. What happened was, we're a college football stadium, but we don't have any donors. We don't have alumni. The NFL stadiums, they bring in a boatload of money because of the ticket prices and everything they charge. We're not in that situation. The other stadiums that are municipally owned, I showed you the Orange Bowl and the Cotton Bowl. Typically the stadiums like Michigan or Notre Dame, Texas, their donors step up, and we don't have them. So some leaders in our area stepped up, and we created a nonprofit group. They raised about $13 million to help the Rose Bowl, and their goal is to raise 20. So it's remarkable what they have done, and the fact that they care that much about our stadium. It's not a normal stadium. This is our premium seating. You saw creating the revenue stream. The way it's set up, a lot of the improvements in the stadium, they don't make any money. Widening a tunnel or putting a new bathroom in doesn't generate any revenue, but you need to do it. And the electrical, the infrastructure, the things that we've had to do. And this is one of the areas of premium seating that has, generates over 50% of our future revenue is all based on premium seating in the Rose Bowl. And unfortunately, this is going really, really well. This is, I mentioned, tearing down the pavilion. We had that indication just a few nights ago. Again, a group of UCLA alumni donors, they got up and they raised over $3 million to help support this, and we thought it was the right thing, because up until then, there was nothing in our stadium that said UCLA, and they've been here since 1982. So, but now they're and tearing down his name will be symbolic with UCLA's involvement at our stadium. This is a little old school, and but although we have a little different way of manicuring our grass these days, one thing we are going to do next year is we're bringing back those hedges. And those hedges did exist long ago, so next year you can go around the stadium and you will see some hedges. And this is also a couple other things. This down here is we are going to be redoing the front entrance of the stadium. And we're hoping at some point somebody puts their name on here to help us raise dollars for our stadium. But also what this is, right in the front, is going to be a sustainable area where it's going to basically take all the dirty water that from the stadium goes down, clean it out, then it goes back into the wash, part of a state requirement that we're doing. And this is the Court of Champions. We're going to be redoing the Court of Champions next year as well, which is going to be a beautiful improvement. So as you enter the front of the stadium, that whole area is going to be upgraded significantly. And this, of course, is the bricks. There was a few things on your tables. The Tournament Roses are celebrating the 100th game this year. As part of that, they have funded a brick program. There's going to be 20,000 bricks in front of the Rose Bowl, and and I know we were already talking with Jeff about a brick, and which is great. But it is going to be a celebration. Again, we think that people are proud of the Rose Bowl, the fact that it's here in our community, and we think for themselves and their families that hopefully they'll buy some bricks and support the stadium. And this just shows what the stadium was and what it will be. It's still going to be the Rose Bowl, but certainly the goal, the intent, is for it to be a better stadium and one that has a positive future. And coming up, as I talked about, this is my favorite time of year. And one of my favorite things is when you have the tournament. They come take over. They have incredibly beautiful pageantry, and the four banners always come up. Honor, tradition, strength, and passion. And that's what we think our stadium's about too. And Jeff talked about sort of the symbolic sort of integration of the game in the stadium, and it is. We're one of a kind. We're certainly passionate, trying to keep the stadium alive in the future. I think that's it.
We'll open up for questions. Lights. Okay, any questions?
Somebody told me that the style after the bowl.
That's true. The stadium went after the bowl. William Leishman had Connecticut roots, and they took a trip back to New Haven. And you're right. The Yale Bowl is the inspiration for the Rose Bowl. To the back, I think.
Most of the bowls now have a commercial name in the front. Is Rose Bowl going to do that?
Well, the question has to do with naming rights for the Rose Bowl. If you put a name in front of it, I think the short answer is no. It's not impossible, although I don't expect it to happen, to have a field naming rights, like Pepsi Field at the Rose Bowl. I doubt it. Right now, the biggest sponsor by far at the Rose Bowl is Honda. If you go in the stadium, you see new signage, and Honda's very prominent. Also, Honda, of course, is the presenting sponsor of the parade. So they're not a naming rights partner, but they're close in terms of the investment. And also the way it's set up, like the Rose Bowl game, ESPN, they own a lot of the rights for all this media rights and sponsorship and so forth. So, it'll be difficult. It's going to be Sony Field at the Rose Bowl presented by Vizio. It's going to be a tongue twister. So the short answer is I hope it doesn't happen, because I think it'd be hypocritical considering what we're trying to go to.
In your quest to improve public safety, at some point there was, I thought, an indication that people who stepped in the Rose Bowl below the tunnel level would eventually raise it, like going down and walking around the edge of the field. Is that still a plan?
Yes, in terms of public safety, you are correct. Next year, actually, what's going to happen is we're going to be taking out seats that typically go in the stadium. You'll see some seats with tarps on them because you can't see. Those seats are going to go away. And what's what's going to happen if the hedges replace that on the sidelines. And the people who are sitting like the lower 20 rows or so are going to go down onto the field and exit the 4 field tunnels, and essentially to sort of spread out the crowd a bit and to make less pressure on the sideline tunnels as well. Yes, sir.
In terms of seating capacity, how large are some of the other very large football stadiums in the U.S.?
Well, in terms of seating capacity, we're among the largest right now. We're at about 89,000, and when we get it done, we're at 87. But one thing that was interesting, when we were doing the whole NFL scenario, the former commissioner of the NFL was Paul Tagliabue, and he came to a Rose Bowl game. And I was standing with him on the roof, and he's talking to me about seating capacity. And he said they have found that when you get over 70,000 people into a facility, additional pressure that puts on your roads, on your parking lots, on your gates, on your tunnels, on your bathrooms, in some ways makes for a more difficult experience for some people for the guests who attend the events. And he brings up a point. I actually think, if anything, you're not going to see stadiums very often the size of the Rose Bowl in the future. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I thought I saw some handrails. Is that a plan to put more handrails?
In terms of handrails, we do have some in the end zones now, and I think as we see the aisles go up in the upper areas, they will happen as well. I think we're also looking about that in the future. This is our second year, and we're certainly gauging the feedback we get from UCLA and Rose Bowl game fans as well.
Second question.
Second question.
About your plans and goals for bringing other events to the Rose Bowl. You showed some of the great events that have been there in the past. Is there an ongoing plan to?
Sure. Well, in terms of ongoing events, really, we're going through a bit of a culture shift. And we have to, because our bond debt, for instance, has gone from $3 million a year to $9 million a year. So we have to do something different in order to meet those obligations. And we have from two fronts. One of the areas that we've had tremendous growth over the past several years are small private events from organizations who rent out for 100 people, and frankly things like this, or corporate parties, and those things. People rent space in the field. And our new pavilion certainly has a lot of those opportunities. We actually recently hired a gentleman who used to be involved with the San Francisco Giants. There in San Francisco, they generate over $5 million a year on these non-baseball events. So trying to do things like that, those are very low impact because a few hundred people, typically. And then the other thing is for the large events, those are more impactful. And those are more challenging, certainly when it comes with the community and how to integrate that. Right now, besides football, the two most prominent events are soccer and concerts. And concerts is the one right now where we're getting a lot more interest. And I think that U2 concert that I alluded to opened some eyes. We had a concert this past summer, which was Justin Timberlake and Jay-Z, which was a big deal. Wasn't quite as big as U2, but it's still very significant. And again, it was very, very successful. And amazingly, our neighbors have a bad rap a little bit. We'll talk about it, but for that concert, we had one complaint. So, for the most part, I think our neighbors understand our situation, and they work with us. At the same time, God help us if we surprise them. That's which is fair.
Any new ideas about parking instead of the golf course?
Parking, any new ideas? Parking's a bit of a double-edged sword, because at one point, when we looked at the NFL, we had thrown out the idea of some kind of a parking structure or something underground, and that didn't go over very well. And I will say, if you go to a football game, UCLA game, the tailgating, people just love it. Unfortunately, our golf course doesn't love it as much. And however, when it's dry, this time of year, it usually is okay. Where we get in trouble is, of course, if it happens to be that it's wet. And then, like last year, the UCLA-USC game, it unexpectedly rained during the game, after people were parked. So on the way out, it was a mess. And typically, if we think it's going to be something that's going to have a really significant adverse impact to the golf course, we won't park certain areas, we won't park it. If we do have to park it, we'll try to put money back into it as soon as we can. It's just, again, the beautiful thing is the stadium's in a park. The challenging sometimes is the stadium's in a park. Any other questions?
What are the bricks selling for?
Great question. The bricks start at $100, and so it's pretty inexpensive. And go to rosebowlbricks.com, and you can sign yourself up, and we hope something you do. Great holiday gifts. Okay. Well,
was anything done with the acoustics of the Rose Bowl in the construction?
The sound system.
Concert there and stuff like that?
Well, the concerts, they bring their own sound system, so that's a little bit different. But as part of the improvements, we do have some improvements in the sound system. It's not a new sound system, but it's better. I think we have like 22 new speakers, so it's improved. Sort of like I talked before about the exiting time. It's better, but it's really not perfect. Okay, well.
Before I thank you formally, there is one thing that I should mention, and we talked about the tours. I would encourage, there is pamphlets on the tables talking about tours of the renovated Rose Bowl. It is spectacular. The tour includes going down onto the field, clubhouses. You get to see the home and the visitors clubhouse. It's a wonderful experience. A lot of history. You get to see the new pavilion. It is really magnificent. Please, now the pricing on that is $17. It's well worth it. It is well worth it. On behalf of the City Club, thank you very much for coming.
Pretty much conclude tonight's program. As you can see on the slide, save the date, November 19th, our last dinner meeting. So I do hope to see everyone that night. Let's give a big hand to our speaker again. There. Thank you. Okay, good night.